Hello, everybody. We're live, and I'm going to be interviewing my co-host, Janis Gillham Grady. We hope you're doing well. This is a viewer Q&A as well, and this is a live stream, and we want to welcome you here. So let's get started. Aloha, everybody. Welcome to our channel, Scientology, Peeling the Onion. My name is Mark Fisher, and I'm with my co-host, Janis Gillham Grady. How you doing, Janis?
G'day, everybody. I'm doing good, Mark. I'm doing wonderful. I've got a great life.
That's wonderful. Somebody asked a question, is it hot in Vegas, or is it just Janis and or Mark?
It's hot if you go outside and sit in the sun.
Yeah, we're like 110 degrees Fahrenheit today, and it's going to get to like 112 this week. So it's pretty hot, but we air condition everything. And so we pretty much stay inside. Plus, Janis has a swimming pool, so she can go in and cool off if she likes.
My pool was getting so hot that about once a week I have to leave the cover off overnight so that it will cool down. And I left it off last night, and I had a great swim today. It was nice and comfortable. It wasn't like 90 degrees swimming in a bathtub.
That's great. That's great. Anyway, I'm just going to welcome some people here. Mary Kay London. Hi, everyone. Hi, Mary Kay. She's a member of our channel. Hi. Nice to see you here. And then there's somebody else here also from 13909. Hello, Janis and Mark. We want to say hello to you. And here's another one here from Cynthia. So happy to hear from Mark. More from Janis. Your story is intriguing. Yes, we are going to be talking more about Janis. I've done a lot of interviews, and Janis has too. But I'm going to ask her some questions and see how what she's been up to and what's going on, and then you guys can also dig deeper as well. That's one thing I wanted to mention. Go ahead. I'm
on the hot seat.
You're on the hot seat. That's right, and it's hot here in Vegas. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you're new to our channel, please subscribe. Hit that like button, as Janis likes to say. Rock slam it. We really appreciate it. We haven't done a live stream in a while, and so we encourage your participation. We will pop up your comments and questions, and I'm going to ask Janis some things to talk about, and then you all can pipe in. We like the feedback, and we like all of that. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that to everybody here. And what do you have something to say, Janis? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Nope. Keep going. Whatever you.
All right. Well, let's get
whatever
started.
You have to say.
What have you been up to for the last month or so, and what have you got coming up the rest of the summer?
What have I been up to? Swimming. I've been swimming every single day, and I go to the gym and I do my Zumba classes. And I work on my Outback Naturals supplement company. And I've actually been working on a liquid vitamin, which is fun, testing different flavors. And we've come down to either a peach flavor or a raspberry flavor. So I've got to nail down what people think is the best flavor. And the liquid vitamins is because a lot of people are getting old and they have trouble taking pills, and so they can just take a swig of their liquid vitamin and off they go. So that's my newest thing coming out. I've been helping my daughter with her Oracle CBD salve, which, by the way, Mark, you had two cousins who have been using it, and they gave phenomenal reviews. I was very impressed with what they had to say.
Well, yeah, one of my cousins. Yeah, one of my cousins, and maybe she gave it to somebody else, I don't know, but my cousin Nancy, she ordered it and she uses it and she really enjoys it. And of course, this is the CBD salve. It's made with emu oil or whatever, right? And it basically takes away a lot of pain in your joints and things like that. So if anybody's interested in it, they can order it right here at healedbyoracle.com. which is Janice's daughter's Erin's company. So, natural CBD healing salve, Oracle Healing. Anyway,
Right.
we will put a link down in the description where you can actually get that information if you've not been there. I see this. We got somebody here, Janice. Kaz.
Freezing in Melbourne. That's right. It's winter.
It's so funny that
I remember growing up in Melbourne, you know, it was funny at Christmas time, it was summer. And I used to wonder why there was Christmas cards with snow. because it was summer. You got a bicycle, you got roller skates, you played outside. It was like snow at Christmas time.
yeah, it was kind of weird for me when I lived in Hawaii as a kid. Now, I came from California before that, but it was pretty funny that you could go to the beach at Christmas time. It was the opposite of what you experienced down in Australia.
Yeah.
Hi, Melbourne, Australia. As a matter of fact, I have a cousin that lives in Melbourne. She's married and she's lived in Australia for years and years and years. But anyway, so Janice, you're going to be doing some traveling coming up too, and you want to tell people about that?
Yeah.
That's pretty exciting.
I'm very excited because this is a dream I've had since I was a kid on the ship, going to South Africa and Zimbabwe, which used to be called Rhodesia. So I'm flying down there towards the end of July with Cheryl Detchiff, who we're travel buddies. 2-3 times a year we meet up somewhere and we travel. We cruised. We went to Greece together. We went on a cruise to Portugal and Spain and Morocco. We did a 7-week road trip last year to Florida and up to Ohio and back. So we're going to Africa, South Africa, and Rhodesia, Zimbabwe. And we're going for about 2 weeks with her sister and her niece and a couple of other friends. And so that's what I'm really looking forward to, going on safari, not a shooting safari, but camera shooting. Yeah. And it's funny. One of my old friends from the ship, he's now 89 years old. I grew up with his son and his daughter on the ship. He's down there and he calls me maybe 4 times a year, but he has called me probably 8 times so far this month to find out exactly what my schedule is. And he's trying to work out to meet me in Johannesburg or Victoria Falls or something. So if he manages to work that out, that'll be fun.
Are you going to try and retrace L. Ron Hubbard's steps in Rhodesia?
No, definitely not.
You don't want to get banned like he did, right?
No, I don't work to get kicked out of any countries. I kind of try and stay low.
Right. And then you've got another cruise coming up too this fall, right? Tell everybody about that.
Yeah. Then Cheryl and I, with a couple of other friends, are going to go up to Seattle and sail out of Seattle. I tried to get on in Los Angeles, but I have to get on in Seattle and I have to go to San Francisco. And, we're going down to Panama. I sailed through the Panama Canal when I was 10 years old, sailing from Australia to England. So this is going to be fun, going through the canal as an adult and getting to see it. So I'm looking forward to that. And then
it ends in Miami, or where does
it ends in Miami, and I'm staying an extra day in Miami so I can see a couple of friends. If there's anyone watching that wants to visit with me in Miami, speak up now. I'll be there early November, but I got to get back here on the November the 4th so I can vote on the 5th.
Yeah, unless you do early voting.
Unless I do early voting, yeah.
Which brings up my next question for you. Janet, tomorrow is Independence Day here in the United States. It's 4th of July. It's our Independence Day. July 4th, 1776 is when we declare our independence from England. And Janice, we've talked about this before, but you are a U.S. citizen. You actually have dual citizenship with Australia. And you just became a U.S. citizen a few years ago. And I wanted to ask you, what are some of the things, what do you most appreciate about being a citizen of the United States?
I can vote. And Well, I never did. I never got my citizenship because I could do everything else. It didn't stop me from anything except for, I mean, traveling with my husband, I'd go in the US citizen line, so that didn't hurt me. I just flashed my green card, but I couldn't vote. And that's the only thing. Otherwise, you can pretty much do anything else. Unless you commit a crime, then you can be kicked out of the country pretty fast. But I'm not the criminal type of person, so I didn't worry. I didn't worry about that. So yeah, I can vote, and that's very important to me, and that's why I'll make sure I'm back here in time to vote, either before I go or as soon as I get back.
Okay, now let me ask that brings up a question maybe people don't know. How did you get into the United States in the first time from the flagship Apollo? How did you legally get in or whatever? Because you weren't a U.S. citizen at the time. How did that happen?
Well, I had the first time I came to the U.S., I just turned 17. My sister and I went to Madrid from the ship because we weren't allowed to go to the local U.S. embassy because they might ask too many questions as to who we were. So we went to Madrid, and this lady interviewing us really didn't believe a 17 and 18-year-old were going to America to visit their mother. We had a letter, and she's married to an American, Heber, and then it's like, well, where have you been? And we're like, well, we've been traveling. Anyway, terrible short story, but she finally just gave us a 1-month visa. So we got into the U.S., and then the next year when we came, it was like, okay, we got to get a visa again. So we went to Paris this time. And so 18 and 19-year-old in Paris. And we get to the embassy, and it's closed for Memorial Weekend. So we ended up spending an extra day in Paris. And we called Hank Lahas, who was the commanding officer of Paris Org. And he took us around Paris, but they gave us a multiple entry visa. And that opened things up for me because now I could enter the U.S. multiple times. I think it was like a 3-year multiple entry visa. So that then allowed me to go on missions into the U.S. I went to New York, and then I went to Washington, D.C. I went to Toronto. I went to L.A. So because on the ship as a foreigner with a multiple entry visa, I got to go. So when the ship actually was being shut down and they were sending everyone over to the U.S., all the non-U.S. citizens first, I was actually already in the U.S. on a mission at the Advanced Organization in Los Angeles. And right. Then when we're ready to return, it was like, oh, no, you need to go to Daytona. Everyone's there. So
how did you get your green card then? Was it difficult to get a green card? Because that's what you had to have, right, to be in the U.S. at that time? Like once you were permanently?
Once we settled in Clearwater, the Guardian's office was working on getting everyone their green card. And I went and I did my interview, and it was taking so long. I was 19 years old. So I called my mom because she was married to Heber, who's American, and she had a green card. And I said, hey, I'm under 21. I can get my green card faster if you send in a petition. So she had some guy go and file a petition, and I got it instantly. And everyone else, even my sister, she was over 21, she couldn't get her green card.
There you go, Janis.
Yeah.
That's great. What is it that you like about travel? Because obviously you like to travel. What you've been all over the world when you were a kid, but I mean, now what is it that you appreciate? What are the things that you like to do when you travel, and what is it that drives you to do it?
I like meeting the different people, and I like seeing the different cultures and traditions. And I don't, I see a lot of mixture. And I don't like that because I like looking and visiting and seeing that old tradition. And even, enjoying the people and joining them. Like when I went to China, we paid for an excursion so that my daughter and I could go eat at a family's house and actually be at their home and watch them cook and help them, and immersing in the cultures that you go visit. That's what I really enjoy.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I like seeing the different cultures and experiencing it. I like going to see the historical sites. I'm a history buff, and I really enjoy that too. So that's one of the great things about travel. Okay, I want to ask you a couple of questions. Okay, Scientology sort of related. Okay,
Okay.
you've written two books. Someday you'll write your third book.
Someday.
Okay, right. But tell everybody, what is it that motivated you to do this? To start this channel up with me, and what is it that you like about it? Like, what is it that drives you to do this right now?
Well, to start with, on the books, for maybe 20 years, close to 20 years after leaving, I kept it a secret that I'd been in Scientology and raised in Scientology. It was an embarrassment to talk about it. And then when Joe Charles from Tampa Bay Tribune, he showed up in Vegas to interview me. He was doing an article on what happened in Vegas. And as soon as that was released, I think it was like November 9th,
2009.
2009, yeah. Anyway, as soon as that was released, I don't know, it was like something blew. And it was no longer a secret. And that's when I started, I started typing things, little paragraphs of stories that I would think of, and I just started typing those up. And then over the years, I started putting them together, and I thought, okay, I'm going to do a book. But my husband didn't want me to do a book. Paul was like, don't bring the church down on us. And I'm like, I won't. I'm writing this book without my opinion. Whoever reads it can just form their own opinion. And then I had him read some of it, and he was like, oh, okay. And then there was nothing to be attacked on or have more PIs in our lives doing dirty tricks and that type of thing. Anyway, so I then started doing events and doing my book release and that type of thing. And I saw how it helped people. And I got a lot of emails from people just saying how much it helped them to read and know the history and see what was going on. And then, after I'd written the two books, I started on the third. And I got into about the first 4 chapters of the third book. And then it came to the point where I've got to talk about my mother's death. And that's where I was like, this is hard. And I kind of just dropped it at that point. But I still wanted to, there's so much there to talk about to help people. And so then when I was in Florida last year, I called up Aaron Smith-Levin and I said, hey, Aaron, I'm in town. Do you want to do an interview with me? And he said, sure, come on over. So I drove over there and we did an interview. And I had so much fun laughing with Aaron about the idiocracies of my growing up in Scientology. Anyway, and then Aaron was like, why don't you do your own channel? And then that's when I was like, hey, Mark, we've got a lot of history there that the two of us can talk about. Let's do this. And so here we are a year and something later, still having fun, telling stories and helping people, because it's funny to watch interviewing people. And then afterwards, they're like, wow, that really helped me just to talk about it. And so that's what keeps me going, is people's comments and the changes we can go about on helping people and pushing to get rid of disconnection. It's not necessary. It's just BS.
Yeah. No, and we've gotten some really, like in the last month, we've done a lot of interviews with different people like Larry Wallersheim and Roger Braswaba and Holly Carlson and Maureen Bolstead and all that. And we've gotten some really nice comments, haven't we, Janis?
Oh, we have. It's amazing just be able to talk and tell your story, what it does for yourself, and how much it helps other people just to hear it.
Exactly. And we really enjoy doing it too. And we do laugh a lot at a lot of the stuff, only because some of it's really absurd. The things that we had to do and the things we had to endure. At the time, didn't seem very funny, but thinking about it all these years later, I mean, we have common reality with other people that we talk about, that we talk to on the channel, and we just have to laugh because we go like,
yeah,
stupid. You know what I mean?
Well, I was talking to my brother this morning, and I'm like, Peter, how am I going to convince you to come on my show and talk about all these stories? Because he's reminding me of different things of when Hubbard came on the bridge and my brother was on the helm and Hubbard was like, we're off course. He came over and pushed my brother aside and took over the helm. But what Hubbard didn't know is that Suzette Hubbard, his daughter, was the one who had been on the helm and was off course. And my brother kept saying to the quartermaster, let me take over the helm, we're off course. And then finally the quartermaster let him take over the helm, and there he is trying to get it back on course when Hubbard comes up thinking he was the helmsman that had us off course. So I'm like, Peter, these are stories people need to hear. And he's like, yeah, but then I have so much other stuff to say as my opinion and comments. And I'm like, yeah, it's best to keep some of that to yourself, but just tell the story. But we'll see if I can get him on.
But, you bring up a good point, Janis, because we've talked to many people on this channel, that we've interviewed. And they bring up stories that you or I weren't part of or didn't remember. And it just brings memories back to us that we can then contribute to that story. And it just paints a fuller picture in terms of what was going on. And like I've said, it helps people to heal, because a lot of times, people don't know what was really going on, and it kind of gives some clarity to them, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Well,
anyway,
Mark, let me bring up like Holly. We did three interviews with Holly.
Yeah. Holly
when I first approached her on it earlier this year when I was down in Florida, Holly was like, who would want to hear my story? I have nothing to say. There's nothing adventurous or, it's just boring. I'm like, Holly, you'll be surprised. And we had 3 hours of interview with her of different stories and laughs and, abuse. And, it was just, and her escape story. That is a great story.
I know. And it also brings out, it's just so funny because we tell these stories and we have people tell their stories. They always end up in some kind of abuse, something that happened to them. And so we're not only telling the history, but we're also exposing the abuse that went on. You know what I mean? And that everybody had to endure their escape, how they were tracked down, things like that. So it's become in. I don't know. It not only does it help tell the story, but also I think it's therapeutic for these people that come on and be able to tell their story.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Here's a comment from YouTube watcher. The interviews you do are so important and valuable as historical documents. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And then there was another comment here. Here's this one's here from Alonso's blog. You guys are amazingly non-political. That's very important for everyone. Yeah, I was going to say, Janis, that's the other thing too. We stay out of the current event stuff. Like I said, when I got interviewed by Apostate Alex last week, it's like, there's been a lot of noise and this and that and all that, but these people are our friends, and so we stay out of that because that's not important to us. People can do what they want on their channels and talk about what they want, but we try and stay above it because we're trying to keep the focus on Scientology, the abuses going on, and helping people. And it's not to say those other channels aren't trying to help people too. It's just that, these people that have been fighting and going after each other, they're our friends. We're not going to practice our own disconnection.
Exactly.
Stay in touch with these, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's how I feel. People are like, why are you talking to Mark and Claire? I'm not going to disconnect from them. I don't have an issue with them,
No, and
And
they came to visit us like 3 weeks ago. We had a great time. It's always they're
yeah,
great people, regardless of what other people think of them or whatever. They're great people. They have good intentions. They have good hearts, and so we may not agree with everything that they did as part of the foundation, but that's their business. It's not ours. They're
right.
still our friends. And even Aaron is still our friend. Whatever he's doing is his business. But he's still our friend. And
Absolutely. And
we don't disconnect from people.
there's shows that Aaron does that I catch, and I will text Aaron and tell him, great show. I really enjoyed it. Or, okay, if someone needs help, send them to me. I'll help them out, but, and like when Rinda was, I had lunch with Rinda while I was down in Florida at the start of all the big conflict. And he's still very sick. And the attack he is going through I would not wish that on anybody. And Rinder, I've known him since I was 14, 15 years old, so we have a long history. And Scientology disconnection policy is not my policy, and I don't believe in it. And I will not support disconnecting from anyone. Even if they have abused me in the past, I don't care. They're a human being. I need to treat them like I'd like to be treated.
Exactly. I mean, that's one datum that we learned in Scientology is treat people the way you would like to be treated.
Right.
I forget what it was in, but it was like, treat people the way you want to be treated. That's also, I think, in a lot of religious beliefs in Christianity and things like that.
It's in Flag Order 38, etiquette.
Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Anyway, let me ask you another question, okay? For people, there's people who have been leaving Scientology. Scientology is going down. I mean, they may have a lot of money, but they have nobody at any of their events. Nothing is going on and stuff like that, right? You especially, but we've helped a lot of people who have left over the last 34, 35 years. And you started over, and we all started over from nothing, What would be your advice to somebody who just newly has left the Sea organization and they want to get their life started over again? I mean, what did you do, or what would you recommend that they do?
You've got to believe in yourself. That's the first thing. I mean, I was barefoot and pregnant at 34 years old when I left. And I just had to keep stepping out of my comfort zone and push myself to do things. Not that, well, I have no resume, I have no credit score. How do I go about this? I just had to, I need to make some money. So my sister-in-law actually is like, well, how about you babysit? Okay, I became the militant babysitter. But babysitting these kids, I mean, they were like probably first and third grade, and they would stay with me after school until the parents got off work, and I'd do cookies with them and make them clean up right away. And it actually got me looking why am I so militant? I need to relax and become a part of society. And that was the first thing that I realized leaving. And I was scared. I was not like, let me take on the world. No, I was scared because
Me too.
I grew up in Scientology. Everyone around me was a Scientologist. I didn't even know how to sit down and talk to someone about growing a garden or how you cut flowers or, serving up some meal, or what do I do? Crackers and cheese,
What about rice and beans? We knew that.
Oh, right. But I mean, my cooking skill was that of a 10-year-old. And so it was like, I really had to learn things. And I didn't know that, here I am pregnant. I didn't know, where do you go for maternity clothes? Oh, maternity clothes have special elastic in the front for your belly to expand. I didn't know any of that.
So I think what you're saying is just, I was going to say from my point of view, it was just sort of like you just have to find something that you're interested in doing and then just go
yes,
do it. Some people went back to school, you know what I mean, to actually get their degree and committed to that. That wasn't the route that we took. It helped a lot that we were together because we didn't just go by ourselves. Literally, if I had been out by myself, it would have been a lot harder. And I'm sure you had Paul and you had your sister and Fernando, right? Already you had family, but I didn't have anybody. But then when I connected up with you all, then it became something that
right.
we could do together. And that really helped us out. But I was just going to say, we've had lots of ups and downs, and you've had lots of, business ups and downs too. I mean, you weren't always as successful as you are today. But to me, from my point of view, is that we just keep going. You know what I mean? We just keep our eye on whatever the ball is and just keep going. My brother said to me many times, he goes, God, I can't believe, you always end up on your feet. And I go like, that's just because I don't give up. I don't stay focused on the problem. I stay focused on the solutions,
Right. And I very much agree with that. It was the group. We had a group and we all worked together to survive and help each other out. And you didn't feel on your own in this big, scary world, and as we expanded and got to understand the world better, it became easier. But there's still those scary moments, like when Paul hired this other mortgage company, they were closing down. They wanted to come over to our mortgage company, and they and I were clashing. And I was like, either I divorce Paul or I leave. So I was like, okay, I'm going out on my own. And that was scary. Going out, finding a space, getting my broker's license on my own. We didn't have licenses as mortgage agents at that time.
Right.
So I was setting this all up on my own, running ads to get loans in, and every day I'd drive to work just telling myself, I can do this. And I'd write out exactly what I'd have to get done. And you know what? The first loan that I brought in the door was $1 million loan. I was like, wow, this is fantastic. This is a good sign. And then I just kept building and building. And by being on my own and not having a heavy administrative staff like Paul had, I was making more money than he was, to the point that when things started getting tougher, they had to come to me for a loan so that they could. That made me feel very proud of myself. But that 2007, 2008 crash, that hurt. Yeah, that hurt us. Though I had money saved and put aside, I'm like, oh, we're fine. No, we weren't fine. We lived on credit cards that we went through all that cash, and we were living on credit cards, and I was scrambling to pay the mortgage on the house, and I'd refinance it to adjustable mortgage so that it was a 3% rate, so I could afford that because rates were like 7 or 8 at the time, and it would just keep my payment down. And I was just juggling, and credit cards definitely came in handy during that time period. And then I pulled through. We pulled through it.
Yeah, and not to mention that you had 2 kids you were raising at the same time.
I had 2 kids. I had to, okay, sorry, kids, no dance lessons this week. My son, he could do soccer. That was cheap. Soccer was cheap, and but dance lessons and singing, I had to cut that out at sometimes.
Yeah, and then we had the other external influence of Scientology, fair game, and private investigators interrupting our business and trying to, make us, go insolvent and all that sort of stuff too. So that made it kind of hard too, right?
Yeah, it did, but I just didn't let them get in the way. They would throw throw obstacles out and you just keep going, and that's it. You got just convince yourself you can do it. And that's how I succeeded. I just knew I could do it, or I made myself believe I could do it.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to mention too is that I remember I was 32 when I left Scientology in the Sea Org, right? To me, I wanted everything right now, right now, right now. Here I am 35 years or 33 years later, and I wished I'd been more patient back then. Do you know what I mean? Because you think that, oh, I need it now, but actually, you got a long way in this lifetime. You know what I mean? And it's much. I wished I had been more focused on the future than just the right now. So that's the
Right.
other advice I give to people, particularly if they're young enough and they just left the Sea Org or whatever. You have time to go get your degree. I mean, Karen Presley, I just heard her interview with Mike Rinder, you know what I mean? I mean, she was in I think her 40s, and she went and got her college degree and then got her master's degree, and it just totally changed her life around. So it's never too late to, change the direction of your life and go in a direction that, that you're interested in, right?
Right. Very, very true. Personally, I just kept believing in myself and plugging away. And I am still the only grade I finished, my final grade I finished was grade 6.
Okay.
So I pulled it off with 6th grade education, but a lot of life experience. But I did make sure both my kids went to college.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's true. Okay, now I want to ask you a different question. I'm going to change
Yeah.
a different direction.
Okay.
All right. You were born into Scientology. I mean, that was
Mhm.
that your parents were involved, and we all know your story. You got up and went into the Sea Org. You worked for Hubbard nonstop for like 10, 12 years every day and all that. And then I know you got up the Scientology grade chart at the time, and you did a lot of training and all that sort of stuff. And then, you left Scientology along with your husband and all that. And we've talked about that and Miscavige and this and that and the other thing, right? But I just wanted to ask, what was the big turning point for you as far as your peeling the onion regarding Scientology and Hubbard and what you went through? I mean, was there a time, or like, did it take a long time for you to realize that, that wasn't quite right, or this wasn't, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, when I first left, I was still a Scientologist and I was going to get back in good standing. It was just, I had issues with management and Miscavige, and I was going to be a good Scientologist and not talk to SPs. I mean, when I first left and I went to my brother, his mother-in-law, Mary Lou, showed up at the beach where we were, and I'm like, oh my God, I shouldn't be talking to her. She's a declared SP. Well, so was my brother. but I had nowhere to go.
You were on your way to that status.
but I wasn't planning to get that status.
No.
I was planning to, sort things out but have a life and raise my children as a Scientologist. But then, the IJC, when an amnesty came out, IJC contacted me.
International Justice Chief.
International Justice Chief. Yeah, they contacted me and said, hey, there's an amnesty. Why don't you accept the amnesty and get back in good standing? And I'm like, why would I do that? If I sat down and wrote down what they consider are overts and withholds, someone like Miscavige is going to say, no, she blew. She's got more to it than that. Well, I don't. And I wasn't willing to have someone evaluate for me. And that's where I was like, no, I'm not doing it because it's a farce. And I know how Miscavige acts. So but I was still a good Scientologist. And when I saw the Scientology org, their storage unit was going up for auction, I wrote a report to the Justice Chief and said, hey, there's trouble with the Las Vegas org. They can't pay their storage bill. Oh, what was I thinking? Anyway, And then it just slowly, as I started living a life outside, even with all the Scientologists, the people who had been in Scientology with me, I just started comparing things. And Paul would even say, well, LRH would say this, 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 and this. And I'm like thinking in my head, I don't care what he says. I'm not in a Scientology organization. I'm just going to do my own thing and what I feel is right. And that's when I suddenly went, these people aren't suppressives. And I just started reaching out and contacting my old friends. I'm in Hawaii, and Dee Dee sends me a thing and says, hey, Kimma lives in Kauai. Why don't you see Kimma? And I hadn't seen Kimma since she blew in 1980. And so this was like 1999. So I call Kimma, and she's like, come on over. So we go the other side of the island, and we didn't go back to our condo for 6 days. We just stayed at Kimma's house and rekindled our friendship. And that's where I'm like, she's not an SP. And I just started rekindling old friendships. And that helped definitely peeling the onion, seeing that these people aren't bad people.
And did you compare notes, obviously, because she probably told you stories about Hubbard that you hadn't heard and vice versa, right?
Yeah, you always compare notes, and people tell stories, and you laugh and you have a good time, and some people cry, and it's just a love fest.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I've said before, for me, I read the book Barefaced Messiah on your sister Terry's recommendation, written by Russell Miller. That changed my viewpoint a lot about L. Ron Hubbard. And then shortly thereafter, I reconnected with my father, who had been a declared SP, just like you said. I can't talk to my dad, even though I was out, because I still considered myself a Scientologist. And it took me about 2 or 3 years before I reconnected with him. And then we reconnected and we started talking. And after a while, I started going like, this is a bunch of crap in terms of what happened to him and all that. And it's just sort of smoothed out, it's funny how, getting in communication with people just sort of smooth things over.
Well, what I actually started looking at was, okay, this person is a raving maniac, but because they were never in Scientology, they're not suppressive. So any Scientologist can talk to them, but they can't talk to me or to you or Terry or any of us, and we're good people and we're not raving mad. And that's where it was like, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't add up. Something is wrong that, all these people are not suppressives. And if I was a Scientologist, I would look at LRH's datum that it was 2.5% or 2% are suppressives, 2.5% is suppressives. Well, there's way more than that. Nearly 50% of everyone who's been in Scientology is now an SP, a suppressive person.
Which means a bunch of BS, yeah.
Exactly. And they're good people.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's like, we just did our first interview with Larry Wallersheim, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, right? Well,
yeah.
Public enemy number one when we were in Scientology, because he was suing the church and trying to get money and not one thin dime for Wallersheim and this and that, right? And I never talked to him since I was 19 years old. But, just reconnecting and talking with him, you listen to him tell his story in terms of what's going on. You go like, this was not the devil. I mean, this guy was not, evil. It's just so funny, just getting in communication with all these people that you were told were really bad people. It was a bunch of crap,
Right. I mean, well, they're bad people because they sued Scientology. Well, they had to have had a reason to have done that. And it's usually because they were abused or mishandled or mistreated, and no one took the time to really find out what is the issue and let's handle this problem.
Yeah.
And if someone did that, they wouldn't have had all these lawsuits, that they've still got them now, these girls in Florida, that they were slaves, just like I was a slave. However, there's no statute of limitation. There is a statute of limitation, so I couldn't join their lawsuit for having been a child slave.
Yeah.
Because there was no sex involved on my slavery.
Right. Well, I'm going to move on. We're going to answer your questions. I've starred several
Okay.
questions in the comments. And if you've got a question, just get in there, write a question in the chat, and we'll start and put it in there, and I'll ask Janis. But before we go to the chat and to the questions, we've had people comment that one of the things they like about our channel is the fact that we both have dogs. So please enjoy.
Okay, all three of you are here. I got the ball. Ready? Go. Thank you, Rocky. Okay, ready? You ready? Go. Got it. She's not gonna let the boys have it. Okay, Misty, we gotta play. You can't keep it. I'm gonna keep throwing it. There you go. Good girl. That's very cute.
Yeah, so tell everybody what, Misty, you were dog sitting, and tell everybody what that was about.
Yeah, my boys and I were dog sitting. A friend of mine, she just lives 3 minutes away from me, but I've known her ever since I left. Her son was the one who told me that Dave LeBeau was a private investigator. And so, and over the 30 years, I've been in touch with her son and her, and she ended up in hospital and then rehab. And I found out her little Misty was staying at home alone. So I went and got Misty, and every day I'd take Misty in to go visit her mom, who's like she's now 92 years old. Yeah. And then Misty would stay here with me and the boys, and we'd go play ball and have a good time.
Yeah. And that just highlights one thing that Janis is. She always has helped, people, even like, our friend or whoever, his mother, he lives in Florida and she's willing to help. Same thing happened with my mother 2 years ago when I had to move her into a group home. Janis was there to help. So, she's got a big heart and she's always been there for people who were in need. So I just want to thank her for that.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, I'm going to put these, Janis, if you'll star any new questions or comments, I'm going to go to the ones that I've already starred and I'll read them. Please bear with me, everybody. My eyes are not as good as they used to be, so I may have to put on glasses. So, unfortunately, I'm getting old. So anyway, we will go here. Here, this is a comment from 13909. We're happy to have this loyal officer on Team America. Anyway, thanks. That's a funny comment. This is from Kaz. Janis, you should go to Bali, full of amazing culture and traditions. My husband is from there.
It's on my list. And, Paul and I even had a trip booked and everything to go to Bali, but he passed away too soon, so we couldn't do that. We actually had several trips. The one I'm doing to South Africa, we had that booked, and then COVID locked down the whole country, so we had to cancel that. And there were several like Bali, and so I'm now doing South Africa, and Bali is on my list.
That's right. Okay, next question. YouTube watcher question. Did Janis have a sense that her childhood on the ship was quite different to other children compared with her experiences in Australia before leaving for the cruise?
Leaving for the cruise.
When you cruised from Australia over, when you got on the Apollo.
No, when I was in Australia as a kid, I just turned 10, 20 days before we sailed. And it was like the world was out of my reality. It's like I lived in Australia, I went to school, and I knew my country, and I knew my, Banjo Patterson poems, but the rest of the world was just, it wasn't in my world. It was not a reality until I got on that ship and started sailing. And we went to, Tahiti, and we went through the Panama Canal, and we went to Portugal, and it was like, wow, this is a big world. Though I'd seen the globe it just wasn't real until I started doing that trip. And then, at 11, there I was on the Royal Scotsman, traveling around the Mediterranean, and that made things more real. And then suddenly, and I looked at the map down in hold number 2 that someone had drawn, and with orgs in every single, in the different capitals of countries, I learnt my geography as to Johannesburg is in South Africa, Paris is the capital of France. So I learnt the world by running messages to management from Hubbard. And that was my education of where things were on the map.
But when you were on the Apollo, did you have a sense that your life was different than other normal children that you'd interacted with in Australia?
Yeah, I did. And there was actually a point in 69 where Hubbard was going to send us to America to go to high school, to go to school. And even then, though I hadn't been in school for like 2 years, proper school, I was nervous about the thought of going to an American school because I wouldn't know the same things as these other kids would know. And so when that was decided not to happen, there was a bit of relief, but I wanted to go because that would have put me with my mother again. And there was a relief that I didn't have to go through the challenge of going into a school. And
Janis, your mic's breaking up again. Can you pull it towards you again?
Yeah, sorry.
There you go.
I'm all blurry, but that'll go away. But like when we moved to Clearwater, I watched the kids who are under 18 years old suddenly have to go to school, to high school, and they might have been they were under 16 years old. So they were probably 14 or 15, hadn't gone to a regular school in years. And now they had to fit in with the Clearwater kids and go through all the teasing for being Scientologists. And I was glad I missed out on having to do that.
That's great.
But I did realize my life was different. Okay.
Next question. This is from Luke Herbst. Question. Hi, Mark and Janis. Janis, knowing LRH as well as you did, do you tend to remember him fondly on a personal level, or are your memories of him more bitter now that you're out of Scientology? It's a good question.
Yeah, very good question. I try not to hold any bitterness. So I do have fond memories, and I do have harder memories, where there was abuse and I try and laugh it off and make fun of it and the ignorance of it all.
Do you have any fond memories of Hubbard? I mean, he was nice to you at times, right?
Oh yeah, we'd have good laughs together. He'd call me, and I this hadn't clicked to me. He'd call me his little waif, and I looked that up, and it's like an orphan. Okay, I was an orphan, and he did teach me how to cook a steak when we were in Hemet. I didn't know how to cook a steak, and he would have me put salt in the bottom of the pan, and we'd gone out shopping, and he was telling me how to look for the steak. And we had fun. We did fun things like that. Or we're gonna watch a movie, everyone else is gone, and he gives me the list to look, and I go, oh, here's Jane Fonda in Barbarella. And so we're sitting watching Barbarella, and it's like Jane Fonda half naked, and I'm like, in the psychedelic thing, I'm like, oh my God, this is embarrassing.
That's funny. All right, next question here. Your camera's blurry.
I know.
If you want to go out.
That's a little better.
If you go out real quick and then just come back in.
Go out. So
leave studio and then come back in. Yeah. Or go to settings. She'll be right back, folks. We're just trying to get her in focus. Anyway, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. Hit that like button. That really helps us out. And if you want to become a member of our channel, you can do that. Just click on the join button on a PC or laptop. There you go. Back at it. You're nice and focused now. You can hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, next question. Here we go. YouTube watcher question: how well did Janis audit? How trained was she as an auditor?
You know, I was trained as a Dynetics auditor when I was 11 years old. And then I didn't do any auditing after that, really. I did some word clearing on people because Hubbard would tell me, go grab an e-meter and go word clear this person. And what I did is I grabbed Claire Popham, who is another messenger. I said, Claire, you got to drill me on doing this. I've got to word clear Norman Starkey. So Claire worked with me. And then later on in when I was 21 and I went to the Rehabilitation Project Force, I had to read it, drill it, do it. And so I did some auditing then with Bill Fosdick. He was my twin.
Okay, great. Thanks for that question. Apostate Alex in the house. Hello, you two. Just getting home from work. Wanted to pop in and say hi while you're live. Two of my favorite SPs. Thanks, Alex. And we enjoyed having you here in Las Vegas. Of course, we've done videos on that.
Yeah.
And he is a good mate. That's for sure. That's for sure. Anyway, all right. Let me go to the next question. Here we go. All right. Question again, YouTube watcher. Janis, what was LRH's production schedule on the ship during the early Sea Org days? How was LRH producing so much text? Did he write longhand and have other people transcribe and edit? Good question.
Oh, yeah, good question. When I first started working for him, he hand wrote everything. And he would have some flimsy paper underneath and some carbon paper and regular paper. And he wrote it on legal size. And because those days, you didn't have we had a copy machine, but it was expensive with toner. And, if we're out at sea and we couldn't get toner. So he always wrote things with a copy of everything he wrote, and he did it in longhand. And then later on, he would sometimes dictate, and Alethea Taylor, who was his secretary, she would transcribe it. And or Lynn Visk, she used to transcribe stuff as well. She was his personal secretary as well. And then as to his schedule, he used to get up around 11, 12 o'clock, go up to his office, handle his in-basket that Ken Urquhart would have put together. Then while he's doing his in-basket, he'd be called to breakfast. And he'd go to breakfast, which was in his office, and Mary Sue would come in and join him for breakfast. And then he would go back, finish his in-basket. He might go for a walk around the deck. He'd talk to people, and then he might sit down and write a policy letter, or like when he was doing the data series, we'd be out on deck and he'd be looking at different things, and the Russian ship would sail in, and it's like, what's wrong with this ship? And he would try and get us to point out various different out points that we would notice. And then he would go and write that up, or we'd do message runs. And every Thursday night, the stats would come in from all the orgs all over the world, and they'd be hand graphed. And as they were graphed, they would then go up to him, and he would look at the different analyses or do his own analysis, and sometimes write telexes and things for them to do. And then when he was researching like expanded Dynetics, he was CSing all the sessions that were given on expanded Dynetics, and he would do that until he was done with his workload. So that could have been 3 a.m, it could have been 6 a.m, or 8 o'clock, and he would just finish things. And he, and in between, he'd go out on deck and go visit his different aides. Sometimes he'd have conferences, and 2 people or 1 person or 20 people would all crowd into his office.
Yeah, and so he believed in what he was doing, and he wasn't being lazy. He was working all the time. Right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. On the ship, we had no TV.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm not to blow his horn, but he was working because he did believe in what he was doing.
Right.
That's for
But
sure.
he believed in everything he did and that he was the
Right.
expert in everything he did. So even while you've got these great musicians like Jeff Levin and Dan Albach, Hubbard seemed to think he knew more than them. Though all the only instrument he could play was a little of the organ and a little of a ukulele. And then he would try and tell all these great musicians what was wrong with them, and
Right.
Dan Albach, you got a tin ear, you can't hear, so
Anyway. All right, great. Thanks for that question. Alonzo Blog writes, I was scared too, and I was just a mission staff member. I'd studied all the policies. I knew they were coming after me. Nothing like you guys, but you really are an inspiration for ex-Scientologists. Thank you very much. We appreciate
thank
that.
you.
Yeah, no, it is scary when you leave, for sure.
Yeah.
And then he has a question for Janis. Did you know Melanie Seidler Murray? Melanie Murray?
Yeah.
She was a great friend of mine before she had to disconnect from me, and I still miss her.
Melanie, great gal. I did know Melanie and Pat Murray. I actually was the project operator who found them and got them extracted and got them into the Sea Org.
Oh, okay. Next question from Mary Kay London. Mary Kay is a member of our channel. Nice to see you here, Mary Kay. Question: Who leaving Scientology was trying the? What was it? Leaving Scientology. What was the biggest surprise for you when leaving Scientology?
The biggest surprise for me, I guess as well, we're setting up a mortgage company, and I think the biggest surprise for me was these people there was no control on the people. Lunchtime came, they got up and they left. 5 o'clock came, the file is left open on their desk, and they go home. I'm like,
what?
Really? People don't stay and finish what they were working on?
They don't work on weekends? What is that? Oh, that's funny. Thanks, Mary Kay. Yeah, we've got a super chat here from Sterling Tompkins. Hey, Sterling, how you doing?
My boy
Thank you so
Sterling.
Much. Thanks for the super chat. It says, I love Janis's story. It informs me so much on where all the craziness came from and helped me recover my recovery and understand. That's great, Sterling. It's good to see you, man. We haven't seen you in a while.
I love Sterling. I've known him since the day he was born. Yeah, he looked like a little old man.
Thank you so much, Sterling. We appreciate you being here. It's good to see you. We'd love to have you come on again sometime. So just reach out, or we'll reach out to you, one or the other.
I've actually promised Sterling I'll go on his show, so I've got to schedule that with him.
I'd like to do Sterling too on my travel show, because I know you travel all over the world. I would love to have you on my travel show. So anyway, we'll reach out to you. And then also I wanted to mention Terry Ray. She's a member of our channel. Sorry, I'm so late.
Hi, Terry.
Okay, Terry Ray. It's good to see you here. And so anyway, I'll go back to the questions here. The YouTube watcher asks a question just out of curiosity. What is reach and withdraw?
Okay, that is I always knew it as a process, but then it's a way of dealing with things where the process is reach for such and such, withdraw from such and such. And the whole idea is to get someone comfortable with it. And so even in the work world or in anything you deal with, to get out of a comfort zone into doing something, you can reach and withdraw, where you reach towards doing it and you withdraw from it, and then you reach back. And people do that too with relationships. You're interested in someone, you reach to them, and then it's like you withdraw, and then that gets them reaching to you, and then you reach back. So that's my advice. You're muted, Mark.
I know I am because Misha's barking, but anyway,
okay.
I will go to the next question here. Hold on a second. Here we go. This is a comment, Linda Van Schalwick. I love your content. The interviews are very interesting and informative. I love both of you. You're compassionate and so humble. I'm from South Africa. Enjoy the safari, Janis. An amazing experience. Thank you so much for
I
that nice comment.
I will. Thank you, Linda.
Okay, and Elizabeth question, Janis, what was your preferred job or task while in the Sea Org?
Well, I
Riding
was
the
in this.
mower.
I did. I enjoyed that.
She enjoyed
But
riding on that lawnmower, rider mower with her bikini.
well, I was busted and I was declared. I was the only person at the gold base that was declared. So no one would talk to me, and I didn't enjoy that. But I did enjoy going out, riding around on the riding mower in my bikini and getting a good suntan. Yeah, so that was fun. I did not enjoy having to trap the gophers and kill the gophers off, but on the ship, I mean, I was a Commodore's messenger pretty much the whole time I was on the ship. I I I had my moments where I enjoyed it, and I had moments where I hated it. It was. But when I was in management, um, I did enjoy being Deputy Watchdog Committee Chairman and the Chief Officer of CMO, because that gave me the power to help people. And when the commanding officer, Mark Imber, would be gone, I've never said this before, but when he would be gone, and I got to run the musters. Oh, we would have fun at the musters, and I would play games for awards and things like that, just to make it fun, because it was so miserable otherwise. And so I was always happy when he'd have to go to LA, because I got to be in control. and I did like doing missions and going out and troubleshooting, and I enjoyed going to the Free Winds. I did the maiden voyage mission, and then I went back and I was in charge of the ship, while Milt Wolf was being corrected for his drinking and gambling. And I did enjoy that because I tried to make things fun.
Thanks very much, Elizabeth. We appreciate that question. YouTube Watcher has another question. What's the craziest message you ever had to deliver for Hubbard?
Craziest message. Oh,
Memorable.
craziest. Wow. Wow. I don't know. There was just, I mean, you're talking on the ship,
Thousands.
you're talking 8 years of message runs, 6 hours a day.
Nothing pops into your mind. That's fine.
Nothing
We'll
pops. Yeah.
All right, Nita Pete. Hey, Nita. Nice to see you here. Thanks so much. Question: did you ever witness Ron channeling his researches?
That's an interesting question, because when he would write policies or bulletins or whatever, and as I said, they were all longhand, and he would, use a red pen for bulletins and a green pen for policies and a black pen for executive directors or flag orders, or a blue pen, he'd sit there at his desk writing and writing and writing, and his leg would be jogging up and down, as he's writing. And you can see, and it was like he was far away. And I would come back sometimes from a long message run, and I'd stand in front of his desk, and he'd just be, wagging that foot up and down, and he wasn't there, but he's writing away. And then he'd look at me, and he's still thinking, and then he's back to writing. And I'd wait until he actually verbally acknowledged me, because I didn't want to interrupt his concentration. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay, that's good. All right, next one then. Thank you, Nita Peep. Let's see this. I asked that one already. Sorry about that. I'm fine. Oh, here we go. Elizabeth question: when did you and your family start horseback riding? I recall at St. Hill or on the Apollo, you went riding with either Diana or Suzette. Was this when you were introduced to horses?
No. My family, my great grandfather was a horse trainer. My grandfather trained the horses for the Light Horse Brigade for World War One. So he was he was in the lineup for Beersheba. He was supposed to be in the charge when they finally took the town. But he was the horse trainer of all those, he was training the horses. So then my grandmother, she was into horses, and her father. And then my sister was a horse fanatic and still is. I think she's got 8 horses right now. I have a horse and it's at her place. So when we were kids, we used to shovel manure for rides. We'd go horse riding. And I was just the little sister following my big sister. And she wanted to put a horse in our backyard when we had a house. So going to the Sea Org, there were no horses. And when we were in England, we would ride, we'd go to the stables and ride and stuff. But then we found, when we were in Morocco, we found there were some horse riding stables. So in Agadir and Tangier were the best places we found, and we would actually go on our liberties and we'd go horse riding. And I remember one time I was out on deck with Hubbard and we were in Agadir, and he was like, "You girls don't seem to be as happy as you used to be. What are you not doing that you used to do?" And I said, "Well, we used to go horse riding, but we're not allowed to go off on our own anymore, because we used to catch the chicken bus." And it's a chicken bus because that's where people would travel with all their animals, with goats and chickens and so forth. And we'd all get on the chicken bus and take it down to the stables. It might have been a half-hour ride, and then it was another 15-minute walk down the road to the stables. And we'd go riding, and we'd ride out to the beach, and Suzette Hubbard would go with us, and Arthur Hubbard would go with us, and and I'd come back and my clothes would be ripped, and I'm trying to cover up the rips in my clothes as we're going on the chicken bus back to the ship, because we would fall off horses, get thrown off horses. My sister ends up with a hole in her head. She goes one way and the horse another way, and she's still holding the reins, and the hoof hit her head and it's bleeding, but she doesn't want to go back and ruin the ride. And so the French guy, Dominique, who is with us, takes her horse, Indiana, and rides back and lets her ride his stallion. And she's like, "This is what I've always wanted, is to ride the stallion." So Dominique is off, and we're now riding, and he had told us in broken English, and he's French, "Do not let the mares in front of the stallion." Well, Suzette's horse got in front of the stallion, and the next thing you know, the stallion's breathing down Suzette's neck, and Terry's trying to get it backed off the mare, and oh my God. Anyway, we had some crazy rides, but that's the history of the family with horses.
There you go. Miss Scavenge hated having the horses when Terry had the horses at the Gold Base. He did not like it.
Oh yeah, and Pat Broker, he was big on horses, so DM couldn't do anything about the horses at the Gold Base.
Yeah. Now let me put this in here, okay? Learning About Life's asked this a couple of times. Janis, that Las Vegas question: do you ever have a black ice pool party with friends? E.g., your friends bring a block of ice to dump in the pool to cool it off. We do this in Texas. Oh, a block ice. Sorry.
Oh, well, a block of ice is not going to be enough to cool my pool.
It would melt pretty quick.
My pool is about 30 by 20 feet? No, well, it's 40 and then the platform. So,
and it's about 5 feet deep in the center. I mean, there's a lot of water in there.
A lot of water. The ice would do nothing.
It's salt water too.
Yeah, it's a saltwater pool.
Yeah. But anyway, Janis, Janice went out of town a couple summers ago, and I went to go swimming in the pool, and the pool was 99 degrees when I got in the water. It was warmer than my body. I was like, Janice, I think it's a little too hot. She had the heater
Well,
going or something. I don't forget what it was.
no, it's just from the weather. That's why at nighttime I take the cover off so that the pool goes down to whatever the outside temperature is at night.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. Next question here is from Sabine. I am interested in the food situation in the Sea Org. I know about rice and beans, but what was everyone else that got in trouble eating or not in trouble? What was everybody else eating today? Who was cooking? What are they eating? We had regular food.
Yeah, we had regular food. Now on the ship, when I first arrived, we had Spanish cooks, and so we got a lot of paella and Spanish food. And then I remember we were in Bazerte when we had an American cook, and I had my first hamburger and Coke and a Coke. He served hamburger and fries and a Coke. Oh, the Americans just thought that was the best thing, and I didn't even know what a hamburger was. So the cooks tended to do what they were used to. We ended up with a Swedish cook, and he made Swedish meatballs and different Swedish dishes. So it varied. And there were times the food was terrible, tough meat, dry food, and Hubbard would send messengers down there, message runs to improve the quality of the food. And then we got a purchaser who found that it was cheaper to buy food from Holland in Rotterdam. And he would get big containers full of food shipped down to us, which included ice cream. And it included a whole hanging half a cow, many of them for the freezer and so forth. And that definitely was a big improvement. And even fresh strawberries.
Now, when we were at the Gold Base in Gilman Hot Springs, the food was actually pretty good. I mean, we had it used to be a resort, so I had a full kitchen and all that. But breakfast was eggs. You could get eggs or pancakes or toast or whatever. And then we ate 3 meals a day. Lunchtime was, whatever, hamburgers or sandwiches or whatever. And then dinner was like a full meal too. Now, we had better food because we were in the messengers, Janice, and I think you'll agree with this, than the Gold Crew. The Gold Crew's food was not quite as good. But still, it was good food. It wasn't terrible. But if you were on rice and beans, of course, it was awful.
Yeah, and I remember that reminded me when I was doing the lawnmower, and since I was the only SP on the base, I had to go to the back door to get my food, and sometimes they would give me some decent food, and otherwise it'd just be rice and beans.
Yeah. And then I remember when we got a baker. When we got a baker, all the bread was fresh baked, and the desserts, panuccio, and then we had every day on the table was fresh sliced hot bread. It was great.
Yeah, and he made those little balls with the cream inside them.
Profiteroles. Profiteroles,
they were
called. Yeah.
They were to die for.
Anyway, okay, cool. Let me go. I got a couple more questions here. I think I missed one. Thank you. Here comes the super sticker. Janice, did you ever see LRH read recreationally? Thank you so much, Sam. Appreciate that.
No. He had a whole library of books, but they weren't recreational type books. And he often, before he would secure for the night, he'd lay in bed and read a book, or I'd see beside his bed, he might have the Jack Horner book. Jack Horner was what in Scientology you call a squirrel, because they have gone and started their own branch of Scientology or alteration of it. And Jack Horner was one of those. And so I know Hubbard used to read other people's books that were a knockoff of Scientology or Dianetics.
Did you ever see him read science fiction? Since he was a science fiction writer?
No, but he read, that the Chinese one on war, the art of war.
Oh, Sun Tzu. Yeah. The Art of
Yeah,
War by Sun Tzu.
yeah. He
Okay.
mostly read things to be educated, and he'd sit at his desk going through encyclopedias and stuff like that.
Was he a fast reader?
Yeah.
Okay. Elizabeth, question. You and your husband were the guardians of Jackson. Did you see him often when you were his guardian?
Mostly if we went through the guard gate. or he was doing his rounds, we would see him. But yeah, he was like 14 when we became his guardians. And no, it wasn't a family thing or anything like that. But if he needed anything, he knew he could come to us. Or we were terrible parents to Jackson.
Thanks for that question. YouTube watcher question. Did Janis like David Miscavige at the beginning, or did she always sense something off about him?
No, Dave was a good friend of mine. Yeah, he was a good friend. He was just a fellow messenger. We all goofed around. We'd wrestle.
17 years old, 16, 17 years old, right? When you met him?
Yeah, and we'd have wrestling matches, and we'd all just go to the movies together, or we'd all go to the swap meet, or whatever. So yeah, he was just one of the gang.
When do you remember when you first sensed that something was wrong with him?
Yeah,
getting too big for his britches.
It was actually at a watchdog committee meeting where, because he had defended me before when I had said RTC had caused the stats to crash when they put in that we couldn't get our bonuses anymore. And so I was under the gun from RTC for saying that. And Dave actually came and defended me in that. And then I didn't see much of him, but when Julie and I did that KK gag on him, that was when I started realizing his job has gone to his head. I just realized that because Mark's wife, Julie, at Christmas time, we had Kris Kringles, KK is what we called him. And you sent messages to the person that you were the KK for, and they didn't know who you were. And
You're just trying to drop hints. You were trying to drop
just
hints.
Drop, yeah. And I remembered I had a photo of Dave when he was 16 years old, and he was dating Tanya Burden. And Tanya Burden, all these years later, was now suing LRH and Scientology. And Miscavige was having to deal with that lawsuit, which I didn't know because he was down in LA and I was up at the Gold Base. So I'm like, hey, Julie, you should use this photograph and tease Dave about him dating an SP. Anyway, so Julie sent the picture down to Dave in LA. And next thing you know, Dave and a whole entourage has showed up at CMO Int to find out who his KK is and who sent him this photograph. It was a joke, It
was treated very seriously. I just started working for him. That was the first thing I had to do starting when I worked for him was that. That was a big flap at the time. He was really pissed off about it.
And poor Julie got assigned liability. I didn't get in trouble, but it was kind of, my sister was part of that entourage, and she was like, why would you do something like that? And I'm like, we're just having fun. Anyway, that's when I realized something was off.
Yeah.
And it was all going to his head. And then he comes down to a watchdog committee meeting, and he stood there just glaring at everybody as they're leaving the room or entering the room. And he just stood there glaring at him. And it's like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? Glaring at people. That's not part of anything.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you for that question. This is a quick question. Kaz, what's your horse's name?
Mooney. Moon
Mooney.
Moon Shining Over Me is her full name, and I call her Mooney or Moonster.
So it wasn't because she was part of the Unification Mooney Church?
No, no, she doesn't have a. No, that was the Hare Krishnas with the ponytail.
Okay, thanks for that question. Next question, Alonzo Blog. When did Hubbard buy the ranch in Creston? That was when he was on the run, and it would have been
Yeah.
sometime after 1980, 81. But we don't know, because he apparently was traveling around and writing his book in the Bluebird motorhome, and then they ended up in Creston. But it was sometime in the early
Yeah.
80s. Thanks for that question, though. Next question is YouTube watcher question: when the SO was already on land at Flag or Fort Harrison or St. Hill, does the CUR just pick up their food at the canteen, or they have to pay for it?
No,
It's provided.
no,
They had
no. Well,
a mess
at
hall.
St. Hill, it was not. Well, later on it was sealed, and I don't know how that worked. But when on the ship and at Flag at the Fort Harrison, and even in Los Angeles at the Big Blue Building, the food was cooked by people whose job it was to be the cooks. And then there was stewards who would put it out. Some plates were to officers. They were served individual dishes. Other crew would stand in line and, like a buffet, and just pick up their food and go through the line. But you did not pay for it. That was part of what was supplied to you for your work as a Sea Org member.
That's right. We're going to do the last few questions here, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and answer them here. This is to Mark and Janis from Luke Herbst. To Mark and Janis, somewhere I heard that David Miscavige loves to drink whiskey and play video games. Is that true? Ha. Any strange personal stories of him you'd share? You know what? The whiskey drinking and the playing of video games, that started after I left in 1990, because he did not do that. His biggest vice at that time was his stereo. He liked to listen. He had a really high-end, sorry, that's Misha. Go ahead, Janis, you tell you.
Yeah, what I remember, though, is during renovations, all the crew at the Gold Base are out renovating in the hot sun, fixing up the property. And it was always, I guess, Sunday mornings were football days. And he would be up in his office, or his office's lounge that only he used. And he would watch football games with the inspector generals or whoever he was close to. Well, and then during halftime, he'd then go for a ride around the base to belittle people. And then after he'd done enough belittling and the halftime was up, he would then return to his lounge to keep watching the football game, especially if it was the Eagles. That was his favorite team.
Right. And then the only other thing that I observed, I mean, he had a high-end stereo. He loved the audio, right? But he did read. He liked reading novels, science fiction and mystery novels. There was always a book next to his bed. The funniest thing that I ever had to do was I used to have to wake him up in the morning for a while. Shelley and him would be in bed, and I'd have to walk in and go around to his side of the bed and shake him and remind him to get up. And that was a whole sequence, because somebody who had been doing it before didn't do it right, and he was really upset. So anyway, that was the weirdest thing I ever had to do for him. Thanks for that question. Melanie Johnson, besides Scientology, did LRH have any other interests?
At first it was just Scientology, and he did like his photography.
Yeah, photography.
Photography, and even he'd see a beautiful sunset and a sailing boat sailing through. He'd be, quickly, get my camera. And we'd run on the deck, and we'd run into his office and grab the camera, and he'd be screaming at us as we're running back because we're not fast enough to beat the sun going down. Anyway, so he'd then get his photographs, and he would go out on deck sometimes and test new film. And then he got an interest when we had the musicians that started up. He got interested in music and directing them. And then doing photo shoots. Those were his main interests, was the photo shoots and the music.
And I was going to say, here's a photograph of you with him on a photo shoot on the cover of your book, and he's got his camera with him, and that's you standing with Hubbard on your book too.
Yeah, and this is actually the day we went out and we did a photo shoot it was to promote Setúbal in Portugal. And we went to a winemaking company, and it was the first time I realized that people really did stomp on grapes to make wine. And the bottom of their feet were purple, and they were in those tubs, and they're stomping away.
That's funny. I just wanted to mention that Janis's book, you can get an autographed copy of her book. Just go down below. It's tagged our merchandise site. You can order. That's book 2 here, and this is book 1 here. But you can get autographed copies of her book. Just go down there and you can purchase them, and we ship them out in the U.S. It's easy for us to do that. But just go to our merchandise site, and you can get either book 1 or book 2 or both of them, and she'll personally autograph them for you. So I just wanted to mention that as well. We've got one last comment here I wanted to mention. Hold on, let me go here. Here we go. Thank you. This is from Elizabeth. Thank you, Mark and Janis, for pulling my questions and hosting this. I enjoy your show and stories. Wishing you and your family and friends a great 4th of July. Yeah, and we want to wish everybody a great 4th of July as well. And so
Yes.
I think that's really, really great. Anyway,
my American side
there you go.
wishes everyone a happy 4th of July.
That's right. That's right. Anyway, we want to thank everybody for watching. Before you drop out, please subscribe to our channel, hit that like button, rock slam it the way Janis likes to say. If you've got any questions or comments about anything we've said, we really enjoy the comments. If you have something nice to say or bad to say, put it in the comments. We read them and we respond to them. So we really appreciate that. And then if you would like to support our channel, you can buy us a coffee. There's a link in the description. It's a way that you can donate money to our channel, and we appreciate any support from that. And then finally, if you want to become a member of our channel, you just go on to our homepage, on YouTube homepage, on a PC or laptop. Right next to the subscribe button is the join button. You just click on that and you can become a member of our channel. We've had several people recently join again, and we really appreciate that support. It's another way that you can support our channel. Janis, is there anything else you'd like to say before we end off here?
Just have a happy 4th of July and be safe.
Be safe, everybody. And we've enjoyed this, and we'll be doing more of these. Also, we should mention we have other videos coming up. We're going to be doing more interviews with Larry Wallersheim. Janis, we're going to do a video on death in Scientology and reincarnation, right?
Yeah. And the way I was brought up and what I believed.
That's right. We're going to do a video on that. We've got lots of other people that we're going to do second and third interviews with. So stay tuned to our channel. And again, like I said, we really appreciate the support. Until next time, everybody, have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.